You wanna go, you wanna leave. So baby, come and get away with me. You wanna go, you wanna leave. So baby,
So my wife finds out that we're going to be having another boy. And I think she was, maybe 5 months pregnant when she found this out from the doctor. So I'm still working for the union as a welder. But now they have me out in Dodge City, Kansas, welding on some pipe out there on some gas lines. So I have to go out of town for like 4 days a week. I think we're working 4 10s. So I'd leave for 4 days, and I'd come back on my 3-day weekend and spend it with my family. And during this time, her friend was coming over to help her with the kid, and also her niece and nephew were helping her with our daughter. And she's pregnant with our son too at the same time. So we got a lot going on here. And so during this time, I was welding some gas pipe out in Dodge City for some schools out there, and pretty good sized projects, but I think it lasted maybe 2 months or so, not very long. And then from that job, they moved me to another job to McPherson, Kansas, and they wanted me to weld some more piping up there in McPherson. So everything's going good. I'm still seeking the Lord as much as I can. You know, I'm in scripture all the time. I'm listening to sermons. I'm spending a lot of time with the Lord. Even though I made the mistakes that I made by talking to that girl in the past and pretty much falling here and there, you know, I'm still not giving up. You know, I'm still seeking the Lord with everything I have, you know. Whenever I get home from work, when I was working out in Dodge City, I would just go take a shower, and then I would just spend some time with the Lord and His Word, just in deep meditation, you know. After I read a couple chapters of His Word, I would just shut the book and just sit there and meditate and just speak to Him. And He would speak back to me, you know, here and there, you know, and it's pretty wild, but this is what was going on in my life at the time. Still getting a lot of dreams and a lot of crazy stuff. So it's a really crazy transformation period in my life right now. So I'm up in McPherson, Kansas, doing all this welding, and that job probably lasted a few months or whatever, you know. And I think I might be off a little bit on my timing of when we got the ultrasound done, but I don't think we really got the ultrasound done until after I stopped working up in McPherson. So I was up there for a few months, 2 or 3 months in McPherson, welding much pipe. And one day my boss came up to me and said, you know, Justin, times are getting real rough now, and we don't have that much contracts going on, and we're gonna have to lay you off for a while, you know, till we get some more work. And it was no big deal for me, actually. You know, I was totally fine with being laid off because I was seeking the Lord so much at this time. I just want to spend time with Him, you know. I didn't even care about work, and we weren't stressed out about money or anything because we had plenty of money saved up in the bank. You know, it's not like we were living from paycheck to paycheck, you know. So it's, when they laid me off from that job, I was like, well, this is, you know, it's not a big deal because I could spend some good quality time with the Lord. And so during this time when they laid me off, I think a week went by, and I was just spending a lot of time with the Lord. I was fasting. I was doing a few 3-day fasts here and there. Just spending a lot of time with the Lord, trying to grow in the faith, you know. And during this time, I have another house in El Dorado, Kansas, that I was leasing out for the past 5 years. And I have a manager lady that manages the property for me. And the people that are leasing out the house, they've never met me or nothing. And I didn't, you know, I really had no reason to meet them. It's just, they were just leasing out my property, and as long as the money kept coming in, that's all that really mattered, you know. And as long as everything was running smoothly, That's all that really mattered at the time. So they're leasing out the property for 5 years, and my manager called me one day and she said, "Hey Justin, your front and back porch looks like it needs to be probably pressure washed and stained again because it's getting pretty rough looking. And maybe some of the paint on the house needs to be touched up and this and that." She says, "What do you want to do about it?" And I says, "Well, go ahead and get an estimate." And so she says, "Okay." So she calls up a paint contractor and they give her an estimate for my house. And mind you, it's maybe 1,800 square foot, and it's a nice house and everything. But they wanted to charge me almost $7,000 to paint the outside of my house. That's like way overkill. Because when I was bidding jobs, you know, the size of my house, maybe 2,500, 2,600, not very much. And they wanted like $7,000. And so when she told me this amount, I says, "Hey, actually I have some extra time on my hands, so I'll go ahead and paint it myself." And she says, "You know how to paint?" I says, "Yeah, I used to paint when I was younger, so I know what's going on, you know, I know how to do it, so I'll be over to paint the house." So a few days go by and I get everything lined up and I have a truck and everything. So I went over there to meet the people that were leasing out my property, and I was there to paint the house. So I meet them, and at the time I was 34, 35, and they were probably mid-40s, and they were kind of shocked that I owned the house because I was a young guy. But it's just the way it is, you know. If you guys grind and hustle and try to invest your money throughout life, you guys can have many properties, investments, or whatever, but I'm kind of getting off point there. So I painted the house, and even while I was painting the house, you know, I went on another 3-day fast. This is how heavily I was seeking the Lord. And during the time I was painting the house, I would just have me a Bluetooth radio out there, and I would just listen to sermons, praise and worship music the whole time, nonstop. This is all I even cared about doing, you know, was learning so much more about the Lord, learning about His Word, His character, praising, worshiping, fasting, and everything. This is all I really cared about. So after I get done, I think it took me about a week to paint my house, stain both decks, and everything came out real nice. So after I went and done all that work, you know, I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, hey, I'm in between jobs here, you know. I'm spending time with the Lord, and I'm waiting to go back to work for the union or whoever hires me. I was actually trying to get hired on with another refinery, but, you know, things were kind of like on hold for a little while. So I was just like, hey, you know, while I'm waiting, you know, there's a lot of money involved in this painting stuff, so why don't I go ahead and start me a little painting business up, you know, start making some money. And I had, you know, I knew how to paint and everything like that, but I had no idea about how to start a legit business, how to get registered with the Secretary of State, how to get licensing, how to get insurance. I didn't know nothing about that. So all I did was research it for like a day, whatever, a couple days, and I hammered down on it hard. Within 2 or 3 days, I had my own website up and running. I had business cards ordered. You know, I bought a few ladders, I bought a spray pump, I had jobs lined up, contracts written, registered with Secretary of State, I was insured, had a federal EIN number, had a lot of stuff going on, and I was doing everything legit like I was supposed to do. And so I started painting houses here and there just to pass time, help out with a little bit extra income, and at the same time I was still seeking the Lord as heavy as I could, you know. So I was painting all these houses, got some good experience, spent a lot of time with the Lord. And during this time, this is when I met one of my friends, Rico. I was going to give a paint bid on a big church. They wanted the entire outside of it, it was red brick. They wanted me to pressure wash it and paint all the red brick white, you know. So this is where I met Victor Rico, and I mentioned him elsewhere in some of my other videos. I actually helped him start his own business as well, and I'll go ahead and link that in the description below so you guys can listen to that. But I don't want to waste too much time on that. I'm going to go ahead and continue on with my story. And so during all this, I painted a few houses here and there, and everything was fine. And I was just trying to pass time for, so I could spend time with the Lord, still bring in a little bit extra money, still be there with my family, and just, everyday stuff. Just still try to continue to live life and everything like that. And during this time, I got offered a job. Well, actually, I applied for a job out in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And they flew me out there, they interviewed me, they pretty much offered me the job, but I kind of sat on it. And at the same time, I was also offered a job for the aircraft company there in Wichita, Kansas. And I was kind of torn between both of them because the one in New Mexico I really wanted, and I didn't want to leave, and be away from my children, my wife and everything, so I was kind of looking at the job there in Wichita. So I was just, just trying to find out from the Lord exactly where He wanted me. Where did He want me to be, And during all this, when I had those 2 job offers, my wife, she's 5 or 6 months pregnant with our son. And the house we lived in at the time was only a 2-bedroom house, and we already have a daughter, and I have my son that comes down for the summers. So she said, well, we need to really probably sell this house and buy a bigger house. And I said, yeah, you're right, So we talked it over with her friend, and her friend invited us to go live with her so we could, and her friend was helping her with the kid and everything, so we were going to go live with her friend. That way we could get our house fixed up or whatever, get it all cleaned out and put it up for sale and try to sell it. So we go live with her friend, and everything goes good. I think a couple months goes by, and we end up selling the house that we lived in before. So we're living at our friend's house now, and we have our daughter, and my wife's about 6 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant now. And this whole time, I'm really getting really deep into seeking the Lord. It's like my regular 3-day fast that I used to go on start to increase to like 5-day fast here. And I start to really press in and really seek the Lord heavily. And also whenever my wife was sleeping or the kids were sleeping or whatever, I would just go into the closet. That lady had a big closet at her house over there, and stayed in the master bedroom with the big closet. And I would just go in that closet and just seek the Lord, with everything I had, just meditate on His words. So deep into the Lord, that's all I really wanted, was to have a real strong family and also a real intimate relationship with the Father. And His word says that He's not a respecter of persons, but He rewards those who diligently seek Him. That's what His word says, and that's what it is. Because as I start seeking Him more and more and more, I start getting all kinds of dreams. He starts speaking to me audibly. Went on a 5-day fast when my son was born. He spoke to me audibly. He was just telling me some real insane stuff. I helped a lot of other people grow closer to the Father just by me inspiring them, just by me talking to the Lord. Because I would talk to some of my friends, and they would just talk about everyday stuff, and all I wanted to talk about was the Lord. I didn't even care about everyday stuff. So, and even I didn't even care about making a huge amount of money or nothing like that, because all I was spending so much time with Him. All I cared about was the Lord. And during this time, I got offered those 2 jobs, one for an aircraft company and one in New Mexico, and I was torn between both places. The one in New Mexico even said that they would hire my wife, and they would give her a job also, but the only thing I didn't like about that place is the houses were too expensive. So as I'm sitting there, I'm seeking the Lord, and I'm reading Job 33:15, and it talks about when a man's deep in slumber, the Lord reveals mysteries unto him of things to come. So I was really meditating on that verse, on that chapter and everything. And I went to sleep, and before I went to sleep, I said, Lord, please speak to me on this matter. Give me a clear direction of where you want me to go and what you have planned for me. And so I end up going to sleep, and he gave me a dream. And in the dream, I was walking around like a machine shop or a shop or something with another gentleman. And I couldn't really recognize the gentleman in the dream, but I heard the Lord say in the dream, John Sinfellow, and it said machining job. And that's all the dream was about, was the guy's name and machining job. And I woke up from the dream and I was like, this doesn't make sense. What does this make? And I started thinking, well, I know who John Sinfellow is. He went to college with me actually, and he works out at Spirit Aerosystems, but that's where they build airplanes. So what does it have to do with machine, like a machine job? You know, none of this made sense to me because me and him both went to college for NDI inspections. That's learning how to x-ray welds and different ultrasound welds and different types of methods of how to inspect welds. And so none of this really made sense to me. And so I text John Sinfellow and I said, hey man, I just want to ask you a question. I says, hey, did you get a new job, something like a machining job? And he replied back, he says, actually, dude, I'm a machining inspector out here at Spirit Aerosystems. I says, really? He's like, yeah. And I says, well, what's like your job title? What's the name of it? Because they have specific names for their jobs. And he says, well, my job title is a M15 machining inspector. I said, and so I pulled up the email where they offered me the job. I pulled it up and it says M15 machining inspector. And I was totally blown away by that. I was like, what's going on here? And I was like, wow. And he's like, how'd you know? And I was like, oh man, I had a dream or whatever. And he doesn't believe in Jesus or whatever, so it is what it is. But what I'm getting at here is the Lord showed me all this before it ever happened. Every little detail. John Sinfellow, machining job. And it all starts to come together and make sense now. And out at Spirit Aerosystems, there's like 20 to 30,000 employees at this place. So you could work there 30, 40 years and know someone else that works there and just never run into them because there's so many people, there's different shifts, there's so many different buildings, you know, it's just a huge place. And I was like, wow. And I was like, well, I know there's probably multiple M15 machining inspectors out there because they have them all in different buildings or whatever. Well, when I first started the job out at Spirit Aerosystems, you know, I accepted it and everything. And I finally got a start date. And when I first went out there to start working, my boss is driving me around and he takes me into the area where I'm going to be, where my computer and everything's at. And who's sitting there? John Sinfellow sitting in my area. And I'm working with John Sinfellow. And then the next thing you know is he's the one that's training me and he's leading me around the shop, showing me different things. And I'm totally blown away by all this. I was like, man, I wish the Lord gave me a dream of all this. And now all of this is happening. And I was just totally blown away by this. I couldn't understand it. And so, you know, my story gets more and more interesting as time goes on. So go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell icon, and see you guys on the